You probably know Rebel Wilson for making you laugh in movies like Pitch Perfect. But what if I told you that behind the scenes, a completely different story is playing out? Right now, she's tangled up in multiple lawsuits on 2 different continents, and she's facing some truly shocking allegations. We're talking bullying, defamation, and even masterminding a smear campaign. So what is really going on?
Now listen to this. That's a voice note from a guy named Jed Wallace, who runs a PR firm that's known for its, let's call them, aggressive tactics. The Amanda Ghost he's talking about, she's a film producer who is now suing Rebel Wilson. So how on earth did a private voice note like this, allegedly part of a plot cooked up on Rebel's behalf, get out into the public?
Well, it turns out this very same PR firm was mixed up in a totally separate, super high-profile lawsuit between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. And get this, it was during the legal discovery for that case that all these bombshell voice notes and texts, which are allegedly tied to Rebel Wilson's team, were suddenly brought to light.
Okay, so to really get what's happening, we've got to rewind a bit. We need to go back to the spark that lit this whole fire. And it all started on the set of Rebel's directorial debut, a movie called The Deb.
According to the producers, the first real sign of trouble was over a writing credit. Now you have to understand, in Hollywood, credits are everything. They're a huge deal. It's about money, sure, but it's also about prestige. Rebel really pushed for a full writing credit, but after a review, the Australian Writers Guild said no, and sources from the film say she was absolutely furious.
And then came what everyone's calling the bath incident. And this is where the stories just could not be more different. On one side, the producers describe a medical scare after a swim in some really cold water. But on Rebel Wilson's side, she claims it was a totally inappropriate moment that made the young lead actress feel super uncomfortable. So, which story is the real one?
Well, this is where it gets really complicated for Rebel's version of events. Check out this text message, sent by Rebel Wilson herself the day after the incident. In it, she seems to be playing the whole thing down, telling the producer that the actress, Charlotte, says all good and didn't personally feel uncomfortable, calling it just a bizarre situation.
So, if things were all good there in that text message, how in the world did we go from some on-set tension to this massive public international legal war?
Well, Rebel took the fight public, and I mean really public. She got on her Instagram account, which, by the way, has over 11 million followers, and just unloaded. She named the producers, called them absolute fuckwits, and said they were holding the movie hostage. And then she dropped 2 massive bombshells, accusing them of embezzling over $1 million and of sexually harassing the lead actress. She even took a shot at the young actress herself over her choice of dress.
That social media firestorm kicked off a legal avalanche. Just to keep it all straight, take a look at this. Rebel Wilson is now the defendant in 3 separate lawsuits on 2 different continents. She's facing defamation claims from the producers and the lead actress, and a sabotage claim from her own production company.
So you've got to be wondering, did all of this just come out of nowhere? Or, is there a bit of a pattern here? Looking back at some of Wilson's past public disputes gives us some pretty fascinating context.
This timeline kind of shows a history of these very public, very combative fights. You see a pattern of taking on critics, media outlets, even other actors, and a lot of the time it happens through legal threats or big social media battles. This is definitely not the first time she's been at the heart of a major public controversy.
And that 2017 lawsuit, that one is particularly telling. She sued an Australian magazine for defamation. But not for making up crazy stories. She sued them for reporting on the difference between her public image and her real background. Things like her real name and the fact that she grew up in a pretty privileged upper-middle-class family. It turned into this huge battle over who gets to control a celebrity's own story.
And at first, man, she won. Big. The court awarded her a mind-blowing 4.6 million Australian dollars. It was the biggest defamation payout in the country's entire history. It really looked like a total slam-dunk victory for her. But that victory didn't stick. On appeal, that massive payout was slashed by nearly 90%, all the way down to just $600,000. And in a crazy reversal, she was actually ordered to pay back millions, plus most of the publisher's legal fees for the appeal. Ouch.
Okay, so with all of these allegations and lawsuits piling up, how is Rebel Wilson explaining her actions? Let's take a look at her defense. Her whole defense really hinges on this one powerful idea. She's not the bully, she's the whistleblower. She's basically trying to reframe the entire conflict. She's claiming she's just bravely calling out dodgy behavior, and now she's being attacked and silenced for it.
But that whistleblower story has one major problem: a digital smoking gun. Court documents revealed that a file was found literally titled "How to Smear Amanda Ghost," and it contained the exact text that was used on these defamatory websites. And digital forensics traced the creation of that very file to a computer inside Rebel Wilson's own production company.
So when she was confronted with this digital evidence in a huge televised interview, what did she say? She gave a flat-out denial. She claimed she had zero to do with the websites and even said she wouldn't even know how to create a website.
This Instagram post really captures her whole defense perfectly. She paints herself as an innocent person who just happened to hit the tip of an iceberg, pretty much suggesting that she stumbled onto a huge conspiracy and now some very powerful people are trying to shut her up.
So, that brings us to the big question at the center of all this. Is Rebel Wilson a brave whistleblower, taking on a corrupt system no matter the personal cost? Or is she a calculated manipulator, using her fame and making up claims just to win a professional fight? The lawsuits are still ongoing, but based on everything we've just looked at, what do you think the evidence is pointing to?